Hey guys, Drifter here. On February 23rd, 2024, many of you experienced a massive live service failure for Call of Duty, leaving the game down and less than functional for about 12 hours. And coincidentally, you can actually see the delay in my production times by counting the difference in days between the 23rd and when this comes out. But I got to work on it immediately because it was a massive event in the Call of Duty community. Charlie Intel was reporting on this. People had their ranks reset, unlocks reset, levels reset. Basically, every single thing about their Call of Duty account got reset and went down, including a variety of Warzone accounts that still have not been completely restored to their original glory. Some people are kind of been reset permanently and stuck with lesser unlocks, which I doubt that they enjoy, because that means all of those hours of grinding got reduced to nothing in mere seconds. And the one upside from this event is that everybody had to play with the same classes, which made it fair. It kind of leveled the playing field, and supposedly, this is more of a community thing and not something that really Activision was talking about, that the service failure was so bad that the skill matching algorithm was either not functioning properly or disabled on Demonware's end. So there was no skill-based matchmaking for a couple of hours, and players got this real weird mix of emotions of happy that the playing field was leveled and they were getting that experience that they want, and mad that all of the stuff that they spent hours working on and grinding for, unlocking and buying, essentially got turned off and reset. And a quick little explainer here, I'm just following up on a question from a different video. A lot of people wondered what's with the bed cam, especially this lower bottom right corner. So I'm gonna do this real quick. I'm in bed due to illness. Yes, I can sit up and get around. Just can't do it for a super long period of time. I built this for my comfort. I also like referencing news articles here on Charlie Intel and doing the split screen thing when I talk about very specific topics. And when I do that, the formatting on the webcams is a little weird, to where if I didn't have this bottom webcam, there'd just be this weird kind of gap down here. So I kind of use that to fill in the gap, and it also explains the unusual camera angle, killing two birds with one stone. We better frame the video, and it gives the audience a visual understanding of exactly what's going on here. So I thought that you guys might be interested in that little explanation. So now let's jump into the main topic of today's video, which is the fact that live service games can feel overwhelming if you're not sort of living them, if you're not in them, if you're not playing them every day. You can log back on and feel very overwhelmed by what's going on. And even if you are living those games every day and playing them all the time, they can become emotionally exhausting because of the never-ending hype train and relative sameness of updates. And then, of course, most importantly, most relating to the COD outage in our first topic of the day, you don't own anything. Every live service game, you're essentially paying access to be allowed to play in the publisher's ecosystem for whatever they have going on. Even if you bought a physical disc copy of the game for $70 or $80 or $120 or whatever it's going to be, that's really not that different than getting a subscription service for the year to be allowed to play the game. And you'll play this and you might have to spend like countless hours leveling up, customizing your gear, grinding, getting very meticulous, working your way up the ranks and leaderboards, only to have it all disappear almost instantly due to a tiny little error on the publisher's server. And that happens because almost nothing about your game that you really care about is stored locally. All your unlocks, your gear, your classes, almost all of that stuff is stored server side right now so that there's a persistent profile, and so it's easy for people to log back on from other devices and jump right in. As relating to the recent outage, that's why when you logged back in, everybody's accounts were messed up and all their stuff was, either not unlocked or disabled for some reason, because it's all stored on the server that was screwed up. And I assume that those things are going to be fixed over the next couple of days, but I'm worried because purchased items are even more complicated. It really boils down to complex accounting and how you're buying the points and how you're spending it in the ecosystem, and royalties to creators like Nicki Minaj is getting a cut of her skin, right? So when live services go down, all of those items are suddenly worthless, inaccessible, because what you've really paid for is to have a tiny little data entry and a giant database on a server somewhere that says you have the Homelander skin. And if they don't maintain that server, then that money you spent on that physical thing really kind of doesn't exist. And this can get even worse when publishers pull support for a game, especially a game that was designed to be live service, all the servers go down and the game becomes unplayable. There's so many games, even ones that are just sort of regular multiplayer that you would think that you would be able to play on LAN, become unplayable when either the publishers pull out, the servers get shut down, or entire platforms disappear. For example, think about how many Call of Duty games you've bought in the last 10 years that you can't play anymore because either the servers don't work or maybe because it's so hacked into oblivion, there's no point. And it's scary to think that the Call of Duty game that you're playing right now can and probably will at some point in the future do the exact same thing, probably the distant future. And this sort of massive service outage and disruption in people's purchases and unlocks is definitely something that should not have happened. I don't think it's something that Activision or Microsoft wanted to happen. And I don't know if this is related to Microsoft buying Activision and their layoffs or not. It's definitely easy to say, hey, a couple weeks after, Microsoft laid off, I think it was 1,900 Activision employees. It was a pretty big number, pulling purely from memory right there. After they laid off all those people, not too much later, the servers went down. Well, it's definitely a bad look. I don't know if they're related. I don't know if they fired the live service team or if this was an error that was building for the last 5 years and nobody noticed. So it'd be a little bit intellectually lazy for me to say that, but it certainly looks bad and suspicious. But sadly, all this frustration about losing your unlocks and things that you are buying are only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to live service game problems. So I wanted to talk about some other lingering problems as well, but only after we talk about today's sponsor, very briefly, Logitech G, because they helped me build the setup that I'm recording this video on. So today we're specifically shouting out the microphone that this is recorded on, which is the Logitech GX. It is a simple USB mic, which I haven't used in a while. I've been using XLR mics, but a new setup has new requirements. The most important of those for this small bed rig is form factor. So I needed a very small mic that performed very well and just happened to have the new Logitech GX come out at just the perfect time. It's a very tiny microphone, smaller than my hand, weighs nothing, was super easy to mount, super cardioid, lots of great features, probably the best bang for your buck if you're looking for a tiny mic and you don't have a lot of desk space or you don't want to mount something very, very heavy. If you're interested in this microphone, which you can hear the quality of right now, you can find links down there below, and I believe code Drifter is 5% off. So now we're pulling back from the sponsored segment, and sponsored stuff aside, I am very happy with my little tiny setup and all the Logitech things. They're getting smaller and smaller, and I can fit in here. But let's go back to talking about live service games. Another thing that's hitting me personally right now is how overwhelming live service games can be, and it's especially when you're not playing them. And I'll repeat the same word. Call of Duty is especially bad at this with its unintuitive menus and unlock systems. As you can see, I'm recording this from the bed as a little Ultra Mini health update. Things have been going a lot better for me over the last 3 months, but for reasons unknown to me, the last 3 weeks have been a little bit rougher, so I'm not gaming as much as I want to, and I feel like I'm falling behind on everything. And I'm falling behind not necessarily in terms of base gameplay or skill level. I'm able to keep up in that regard, but rather with what content I'm experiencing and how it is unlocked. Because in order to maximize the value of a live service game, you probably need to play it every single day. You unlock all the stuff, you do all the events, you do the community challenges, etc., etc. You swap over to the other modes for the zombies or for the Warzone or whatever and come back to multiplayer. But when you're not gaming every day, when you're not really living that environment, it feels impossible to access things that you want because you log in and there's a giant grind wall. You log in and everybody else already has the stuff, or you wanted to see the event, but you missed it. Or, last week was, we'll just pick a random example, Walking Dead and Call of Duty or something. And you're like, yeah, I'd really like to sign in and check out the Rick and Michonne event. And maybe life happens and you're just 4 days later, you log in and another live update has rolled out that's pumping Homelander or some other celebrity or something like that. And it's very hard to keep up with because it's all coming out very, 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 very fast. And it makes me feel like I'm missing out on a lot of content, even though I'm still active enough in the game to retain gameplay competency. I'm not active enough to really experience that much of it. Even if it's content that doesn't change the base gameplay that much, I still feel like I'm missing out. And I think this is another boomer complaint. Years ago when Battle Passes first came out, I heard a ton of older gamers talk about how frustrating it was to have to pay to get unlocks or pay to get the pass, and then you had to grind and you had to play all the time, and they didn't have time to play all the time. And I didn't agree then. Obviously, I had a different experience, and experiencing that sort of feeling of falling behind has changed my perspective. But I do believe, and if we're mostly talking about Fortnite here, live service games have evolved greatly since the early days of Fortnite. Those early Fortnite battle passes, those early Call of Duty battle passes, those really rudimentary once a month upgrade kind of things are now comically slow and behind. Big games put out new stuff almost every single week, sometimes twice a week. Huge updates every month, if not every, and then maybe even bigger ones every quarter. New maps coming out, new stuff. Just every time I log on, there's dozens and dozens of new things going on, and it feels like it's accelerated at least 10 times over what it was 5 or 6 years ago. On top of that, console and PC games are feeling increasingly like mobile games. One of the number one reasons I don't play many mobile games is that when I log in, every mobile game has tons and tons of pop-ups for me to click X to scroll through because it wants me to buy things and sign up for this pass and this special deal and that points and these energies. But it's kind of getting the same when I log into my console games or my PC games. Call of Duty is definitely like that. There's tons of new content. We got to unlock this. We got to do this daily challenge. Hey, check out this new operator skin. The battle pass has some stuff going on. It's a non-linear battle pass now and keeps getting more and more complex to the point that I feel overwhelmed by this. I feel like it's difficult for me to just log on and play my game and ignore all of these other things going on because they're a part of the live service environment. But conversely, playing a live service game every single day can be exhausting. And I'm not talking about exhausting in terms of effort or physical ability, which is true of me because my problems have problems, but rather exhausting in terms of the never-ending hype cycle. And this is a good one to talk about Call of Duty with because Call of Duty has run on a never-ending hype cycle for a very long time. And for almost a decade, it was unique in the gaming industry for that reason. There were other games that were hype, Halo, GTA, Minecraft, huge hype games, but they didn't operate on this guaranteed yearly cycle. Call of Duty had a yearly hype cycle that competed with those games year after year after year, and it would start with leaks in the spring, then reveals in the summer, previews and betas, game comes out, and then we're getting ready for the next hype cycle. Other games didn't really operate like that. But now that Call of Duty is primarily a live service game, as most are these days, it feels like they added on top of that several mini hype cycles that happen every year. There's a mini hype cycle for new content release. There's a mini hype cycle for the new season. There's a mini hype cycle for the finale or for some event. And the same is true of every other game on the planet. So it's not necessarily a criticism of Call of Duty, but the gaming environment in general, because every single game now is hitting you with something new that you're supposed to be excited about, at least weekly. Even single player games are running on the battle pass. They did like a battle pass for Doom, if I'm not mistaken, which was very curious. And I will say that for games that are PvE, like we'll talk like Helldivers or Deep Rock Galactic and stuff like that, having rapid updates to change the enemies that you fight is very good. It's very important. It prevents things from getting stale, so I'm here for that. But it doesn't have to be that way for every single game. And what happens to me is that after a while of playing, I just don't quite have the emotional energy to feel as excited about new things. And again, this is when things are going good and I'm playing every day. I think the proper medical word is that I'm getting desensitized to it. It just doesn't feel quite like burning out on gaming because I still love the game. I still to game and the game and the desire to play that game, any game, COD game, whatever game. I love gaming. I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. But I feel like I'm burning out on the content itself because it's kind of like when you're a kid and you get into something. I'm going to say maybe a preteen here. You're really into a comic book you found, an art series, a fandom, a Harry Potter, a Twilight, a something, and you're 12 years old and you just dive headfirst into this. This is your identity. This is who you are. You read every update. You study the lore. You experience the thing daily. You interact with the community. You're very busy. And after a while, you start noticing that each new update is giving you less of a dopamine hit. You're getting a little bit less excited about new things, and you're saying, yeah, that's more the same, and yeah, maybe okay this, and I'm not too hyped about it. And it's getting harder and harder and harder And that's because a lot of the new stuff really is repackaged of the same. They can't reinvent the wheel every single week. And on top of that, your brain is just getting tired. Your brain is getting tired of getting dopamine hits for the exact same thing all the time, which is what I warn people about in terms of like social media algorithms like TikTok and Instagram Reels and things like that, because those companies understand very, very well that if the information isn't novel enough or if it doesn't hit you in a certain emotional way, that you will lose interest. Video games don't have quite the infinite pool of content to pull from to get those dopamine pumps because they have to be developed. So in a lot of cases, it doesn't work quite right. It kind of has the opposite effect and makes you not excited about things. So that's just me. That's how I've been feeling about games lately. You can tell I'm being a salty boomer. I just want to log on and have a lot of my stuff ready to play. I don't want to have to grind 40 hours to get a gun or something like that. And that's kind of it for today's video. Boomer complaints about live service games. And again, they're not all bad. There are definite upsides to having live service games that we did not cover in this video because this one was more of a complaint video. We did talk a little bit about PvE and Helldivers and Destiny and why those need updates. I just wish that every single game didn't have to be live service. I wish that every new game didn't see itself as a live service game. And I wish there were more straightforward, simple games that you either own or you log on and most, if not all of the stuff is available for you to play that you can just get on and play without grinding. Because right now, to me, gaming is starting to feel like I have to pay an annual subscription to access a service, and then I have to pay an annual subscription in that service to access another service, and then I have to play like it's a job and work to unlock and grind things inside that double layer of service that I'm paying for. And then it can all be taken away by a server error. So it's a little bit demotivating, and that's just kind of how I feel about it. We're doing a very emotional video today. So I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you learned something useful. If you did, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out.